again by Elliott Wood. And Elliott, it is Motor Park to the fore on the grid, using their experience of this track to lock out the front 2 rows.
Motor Park have experienced this circuit. They've raced it for several years in other Formula 3 championships, and it's no surprise that they've locked out the front row today. You see our poleman now, Julian Hanses. This is his first ever pole at Formula 3 level, and he dedicated this pole success to the strategy that the Motor Park team used in qualifying.
Yeah, and the bowl strategy being out on the track when it wasn't raining yet and when there wasn't too much traffic, and just taking the opportunity to grab that pole position by a mere 0.05 of a second. And if you think that's close, you should check out the times for the 2 drivers immediately behind him, because his teammates Yuki Tsunoda, second on the grid, who we're about to look at now, and Marino Sato just behind him, actually set identical lap times to within 1,000th of a second, both at 1:11.531. Now, Elliott, Yuki Tsunoda, we saw yesterday, very, very quick around Po, but he didn't finish the race. He clipped the barriers, the ever-present hazard around here.
Yep, he fell foul to the Ultimate Street Circuit Challenge, which is the barriers are right next to the circuit. He did set the fastest lap despite only completing half the race, so we know he's got pace here, but he's also got 2 very hungry teammates behind him.
And there is one of them, Marino Sato, already a race winner earlier on this year, another one of our Team Motor Park drivers, and the second of the Japanese drivers on the grid. He will start from 3rd position, and another potentially strong challenge, of course, coming from 4th on the grid, Liam Lawson, who, like Yuki Tsunoda, is a member of the Red Bull Junior team, the distinctive matte dark blue Red Bull livery on his Team Motor Park car. Now, Liam Lawson, our winner yesterday, and Elliott, he was, pun intended, streets ahead of the opposition in the range of half a second per lap quicker, and led Julian Hanses home by over 16 seconds. But from 4th on the grid at Po, where overtaking is so difficult, he's got a lot on his hands here.
He does indeed, and in previous races we have seen that when ambitious overtakes have taken place, there's been crashes. And it's interesting to note that even though it's a wet race and we can see the red lights on the back of these cars flashing, all the cars we've seen so far are on slick tyres. And this is the same thing that took place in yesterday's race, although a few gambled on using the wet tyre.
We did. No sign yet that anybody is going to do the same thing. There is Christian Hahn, who was pretty quick during qualifying, but crashed during the race yesterday. He will start from 5th position, the first of the non-Motor Park drivers. Hahn looking to get a good start away from that 5th position, and he is alongside our 3rd Japanese driver on the grid, Tepe Notori, also driving for Carlin. Now let's talk a little bit about the run down towards, well, turn 1 is basically a flat-out right-hand kink. Turn 2, Gar, is the proper first corner with the braking zone leading into it. And as we saw yesterday, it's fairly straightforward for the poleser to defend his lead if he gets away well enough here.
Yep, being at the front is incredibly important at this circuit. And further back in the grid, you'll see there's a bump along the pit straight. There's also a zebra crossing very nearby. And this is a disadvantage to those who are further back. And there's also, when it rains, puddles that form on one side. So if you're at the front, you've got the ultimate advantage of having everyone behind you, but you've also got basically a smoother track in front of you.
The zebra crossing is, of course, closed for the duration of the race. You can't get across there. There's a big bridge that you will have just seen in the background. There it is, behind Lucas Dunner, who will start from 8th on the grid, behind Cameron Dass. For me, that's one of the drivers who's slightly out of position on the grid. Dunner's been pretty quick so far this weekend.
Yeah, he started the season with first ever pole position of Euro Formula Open's open engine formula, and he's looked quick all weekend. He did say after qualifying this morning that he was not pleased with his performance at all.
Yeah, I think he would have reason to feel that way. Linus Lundqvist has been into the barriers a couple of times this weekend, although he has mainly confined it to the practice and qualifying sessions, where the R team have on 2 occasions now done absolutely sterling work in nailing his car back together, or I suppose screwing is the more correct term, to get it back out onto the circuit after a few of his adventures. That is Guillaume Samaya. He starts from 10th position. As far as the championship is concerned, it's a fairly standard Formula 1 style point system. 25 points for the win, 18 for second, down to a point for 10th place. We also give a point for fastest lap and a point for pole position. That, of course, has already been taken by Julian Hanses. But perhaps put the thoughts of the championship Championship to the back of your mind for the next half hour or so, because really what matters most here is the title of Pau Grand Prix winner. It's a title we've been awarding for over 80 years. This is the 78th running of the race. When you go back to the days of the 30s and the 40s, this race has been won by the likes of Tazio Nuvolari. It's been won by the likes of Juan Manuel Fangio and Jim Clark, and more recently by 3 current drivers on the Formula One grid, including Antonio Giovinazzi in 2015, Romain Grosjean, the last Frenchman to win this classic French street race, and in 2005, Lewis Hamilton, and what incredible success he has gone on to enjoy. Do we have potential stars of the future in that kind of caliber on the grid today? Well, we'll probably know in a few years' time, but certainly already we've seen some excellent driving from some of the drivers up at the sharp end of the grid in Pau. Well, the spectators are nestling underneath their umbrellas, and as we get ready to send the cars away on the formation lap and they depart, we're just getting a few spots of rain down the grid. Of course, it's too late for anyone to think about changing their tyres unless they want to peel off into the pits at the end of this formation lap. And Elliot, let's just keep a close eye on these cars and see if everybody has indeed set off on slicks. I don't see anybody out there on treaded wet tyres unlike yesterday.
No, but we did see, it looks like Rui Andrade at the back of the grid there, who didn't set off at all. So that's a bit troublesome for him. Of the drivers that did pit for wet tyres yesterday, they had an instant advantage, but as soon as the track dried, which it may do, although having looked at it now, the pictures we're seeing on the screen are showing a much wetter track surface than it looked like on the grid. Yeah,
that's the climb up from Gare towards the left-hander at Oscar, and it clearly is quite a bit slick there. Well, let's take a look then at our grid in full. Julian Hanses on pole position alongside Motorpark teammate Yuki Tsunoda and 2 more Motorpark drivers behind them, Marino Sato in 3rd place and race 1 winner Liam Lawson, who had such fantastic pace yesterday, starting from 4th. Row 3 is all Carlin, Christian Hahn and Tepe Nattori. Cameron Dass and Lucas Dunner are on row 8. Linus Lundqvist, who's been bouncing off the walls now and then, starts from 9th alongside Guillaume Samaya. Billy Munger is 11th alongside Jack Doohan. Jack unfortunately crashed out towards the end of yesterday's race as well. Callum Williams is 13th alongside Nikolai Kiergaard, and the back row is Aldo Fastanti and Rui Andrade. 16 drivers all about to tackle the 2.7 kilometre Pau circuit for the title of the winner of the 78th Grand Prix of Pau. Rui Andrade, unfortunately, is going to have to start from the pits. Everybody on slick tyres, rain beginning to fall on the start of the formation lap. Elliot, that is sounds to me like the recipe for a very exciting afternoon's racing.
It does indeed. And the fact is, in qualifying, we had our top 12 cars separated by just over 0.8 of a second. So it's already a very close grid, and having the added capacity of rain is going to definitely add a level of drama to it. Getting
the cars away from the line in conditions like this on a wet, cooling track on slick, cooling tyres, the crowd nestling for cover is going to be hard enough. I mean, yesterday on that slightly damp start, Liam Lawson was saying afterwards he had quite a bit of wheel spin getting away from the line, and he was able to hold his lead from pole position. It's going to be even trickier today for these drivers to get away. And I can see Julian Hanses, our pole sitter on the right-hand side of your screen, already angling his car towards the right, and Billy Munger, I believe, that is heading into the pits, and so is Nikolai Kiergaard, and from the back of the grid, Aldo Fastante. So I think 3 drivers looks to me like they're going to be taking the gamble of starting on wet weather tyres.
Yep, and Billy Munger was one of the ones who made the same gamble yesterday.
We've got the green flag waving at the back of the grid, so as those drivers head into the pits, the other 12 drivers are all set to start the race, and let's go, and Julian Hanses gets away fairly well. Yuki Tsunoda is away cleanly too. How are they going to be as they come through turn 1? Tsunoda's slotted into 2nd place. He's already got Liam Lawson on the back of him, and Lawson is trying to go around the outside at Gare. Is that going to work or not? They're going to accelerate now up towards the left-hander at Oscar, and I think that Liam Lawson, I'm not sure if he has been able to get in. No, he's down into 3rd position, so he wasn't able to get ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Into the left at Oscar. Yellow flags wave here because it's so narrow and tight. The drivers are not allowed to try and race for position on the first lap of the race. They take this right-hander through Lycée, that incredibly tight hairpin, and there the green flag waves, and there they can resume racing once more, and all being equal, when they come back around on lap 2, that will all be green again. and we can race the full distance around the track. But Julian Hanses has kept his advantage from pole position. Tsunoda in second place. They picked their way through the oh-so-tricky Foch chicane that caught out so many drivers yesterday, even when the track was reasonably dry. And today it is treacherously slippery on this first lap of the Pau Grand Prix. In fourth place, I can see Marino Sato dropping back ever so slightly from the cars ahead of him. And Julian Hanses, Elliot, is just having to be that little bit cautious because he is having to discover the conditions before anybody else. And he's got those 2 Red Bull Junior drivers already, I think, breathing down his neck a bit.
And he's coming to the end of lap 1 now. But looking further back, Cameron Dass at the start jumped from 7th up to 5th. And we've already got a car on the barriers. That's the number
Foch, and that's Rui Andrade. He started from the pit lane on cold, slick tyres and straight into the barrier. The course car immediately on the scene. Let's see how quickly we're able to rescue him. But Julian Hanses still leading with Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson close behind him. Now let's see what the drivers who switched to wet weather tyres have been able to do. They're pretty much matching the drivers on slick tyres for lap time at the end of the lap. And in the middle of the lap, where the circuit is a bit tricky, we're actually very, very slightly quicker. So the question now is going to be, is this rain going to continue to build, or are the conditions going to swing in favour of the drivers on slicks? And a really, really big twitch there from Liam Lawson. That will have caught his attention.
That's a huge moment, and Tsunoda had a similar one just a corner later. All 3 of these cars are pushed to the limit, and we do have yellow flags again because they're approaching the car of Rui Andrade.
And the safety car has been deployed to recover that car, and that is going to really throw a double six because some of the drivers who are out on the wet weather tyres are setting fastest sector times. Billy Munger was fastest in the first sector by about 0.8 of a second, and Nikolai Kjærgaard was flying through sectors 2 and 3. So those drivers who gambled to put the wet weather tyres on seem for the time being to have made the correct decision. But is that still going to be the case once the safety car comes in? So here is the safety car out on the track. It pulls away from the start-finish line. Julian Hanses slows down as he approaches the car ahead of him. This is going to bunch the field up. It's going to completely neuter the disadvantage that those drivers who pitted early had, bring them back onto the tail of the pack, and then we'll see if they're still quicker than the cars ahead of them. Yeah,
it's an interesting strategy choice that all the cars we've seen go past haven't peeled into the pit lane to switch for those wet tyres. And unfortunately, safety car means we can't see what the wet tyre runners could have achieved in the 3rd sector of the lap. But going off the first 2 sectors, we imagine they would have caught them fairly quickly regardless.
Indeed. And Julian Hanses then has caught the rear of the safety car. We've got one car that's still catching up with the rest of the field. That is Nikolai Kjærgaard. And I wonder if... No, he definitely did pit at the end of the formation lap, but he then... he emerged from the pits, it seems, behind Billy Munger and Aldo Festante. So as I understand it, the first of the cars out there on wet weather tyres is Billy Munger. There he is, down in 13th position. And it's still fairly clear to me that the track is pretty slick. You can see the slicked and the groove tyres leaving a clear mark on the damp surface. But the conditions are also fairly bright, and I don't think it's certainly not raining very hard, if at all. So this one, as far as I can tell, really could go either way from this one in. We're not going to have to wait an awful lot longer to find out because the safety car is coming in this lap. The cars are working their way around Park Beaumont now towards Foch, and soon they will be in the hands of Julian Hanses. And this is going to be tricky because it is a very quick blast towards the start-finish area. Of course, once he puts the hammer down, he mustn't catch the safety car before it comes into the pits. He's got to make sure he keeps Tsunoda and Lawson behind him.
Yeah, and what the safety car wouldn't have helped is that heating up these Michelin tyres is very difficult for the drivers, especially at a circuit with such a low average speed as Pau. So the fact that they've had to cool them down again may make a very tricky restart.
Well, the rain has stopped. We have got 12 cars on slick tyres at the head of this field, and then a few cars behind them on wet weather tyres, hoping to take advantage as we get the Pau Grand Prix back underway. The drivers are at the final sector of the lap, accelerating towards the last right-hander at turn 15. It looks like a good restart to me for Julian Hanses. He leads. The safety car turns in. Yuki Tsunoda in second place. Liam Lawson in third position. Marino Sato, 4 out of 4 Motorpark cars in the top 4, and running slightly wide at the exit of Gar is Yuki Tsunoda. And that will allow Liam Lawson to get a little bit closer and apply a bit more pressure to his teammate. And I wonder how the cars further back on the wet weather tyres are doing, but it is super close between those two Red Bull Junior drivers. We've already seen them come to blows on the circuit once already this year, and they twitch their way out of Oscar into the right-hander at Lycée and back up the hill towards Park Beaumont.
And Cameron Dass, who's the star of the first lap race, is attacking Marino Sato for 4th place. And we've got a train of cars who are the slick tyre runners, and there's quite a sizable margin already to the likes of Billy Munger and Nikolai Sjøgaard, who are running on the wet tyres at the back.
So it doesn't look like the wet tyres are paying off anymore. It has been the way so far this weekend at Pau. We've had these occasional brief showers, not really anything very sustained. We had a fairly long shower after the qualifying session for the Pau Grand Prix earlier on today, but that really is as heavy as it's got, and it is nose to tail between the front runners. Liam Lawson, quickest of all through the second sector, maybe just a little bit braver than the drivers ahead of him on this first lap back at racing speeds. Hanses has a little look in his left-hand mirror, and he can see Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson bearing down on him. A bit of a twitch again for Liam Lawson. They break into Gar, the right-hander, at turn 2. Now, what, if anything, can Lawson do about the two cars in front of him? It seems to me he has got a clear speed advantage, but overtaking around here is going to be oh so tricky, and it could well be a case of which of these three drivers may make a mistake first. Lawson absolutely prowling around the back of Yuki Tsunoda, and Lawson has a little bit of a look as they come into Lycée, tempts Tsunoda to come offline, but Tsunoda himself has got to keep an eye on Julian Hanses ahead of him, make sure he doesn't just run up the back of the race leader.
Yeah, it looks like Hanses is taking the tightest line possible for all the slower corners, and that includes turn 2 and the 2 hairpins after that. And that's ensuring that Tsunoda can't attack him, and he's having to watch where Lawson's doing behind him.
They're having to treat the accelerator pedal as if it was made from an eggshell at the moment. Every single time they try to apply the throttle, particularly in the quicker corners, the back end of the car is snapping away from them.
And it looks like Jack Doohan has stopped somewhere on track, possibly through the turn 9-10 complex that's going through right now. Well, hopefully we'll see in shot if he is there. There's no sign of the Double R Racing driver now.
Oh, and Tsunoda was very, very close to the back of Hanses as they came through the chicane, but he wasn't able to get the power down. He's dropped a few car lengths to the race leader, and he has now got Liam Lawson ever more closely behind him. I'm sure Lawson is going to go for a move here. They go flat out through turn 1. They race towards turn 2 in the braking zone at Gar, and Tsunoda has to cover off his teammate Liam Lawson as they bend their way around the right-hander. We have an incident from the first lap at turn 3, which is Oscar under investigation. Not sure which drivers that involves, but do remember that that is the first of the corners that's kept under yellow flags at the start of the race, which may hint at what's going on there. Now, Marino Sato in 4th position does not have the pace of his 3 Motorpark teammates ahead of him, and he has got Cameron Dass absolutely climbing all over the back of him, and Christian Hahn not too far behind as well. We are going to run this race to a maximum time limit of 35 minutes. We have added an extra lap to compensate for the safety car period that you saw early on. And Billy Munger, despite having taken the restart on the wet weather tyres, has moved his way up into 10th position. So he, I believe, is the leader among the drivers who've switched the wet weather tyres, and he is right on the tail of Guillaume Samaya in what is really quite a close train. The beginning of which you're looking at here, starting with Marino Sato in 4th place, followed by Cameron Dass, Christian Hahn, Tepe Notori, Linus Lundqvist, Guillaume Samaya, and then Billy Munger down in 10th position. Here are our race leaders again.
The first sector of the lap, which we'll be seeing the cars come through now, and the run of the hill up from Gar to the turn 3 hairpin, looks very slick. And that's where the wet tyre runners are on pace with those ahead, including Billy Munger, who's in 10th place. And we're seeing the top 3 now, and you can see the grooves in the road here where they've displaced the water already. And coming to the picture now is battle for 4th. Looks like Sato is a little more comfortable this time around.
Yep, he's been able to pull out a little bit more of a gap, and I actually think on that time round, Billy Munger has in fact made up a position. I was going to say he was under pressure from the driver behind him. That's because he's just overtaken him. So Billy Munger has made his way past Guillaume Samaya and is now into 9th position. Munger setting his personal best sector time for the middle lap, and having done that, he is immediately quickest of all in the first sector, 0.4 of a second quicker than our race leaders. And was he making another move there on Linus Lundqvist in the background for 8th position? Billy Munger clearly liking the feel of those wet weather tyres underneath him. Meanwhile, we can't take our eyes off the battle for the lead either, because this is absolutely nose to tail, less than half a second covering Julian Hanses, Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson as they come out of Buisson and wind their way through the quick left and right handers into the chicane. This is where Tsunoda had a little bit of a snap a couple of laps ago. He's cleaner this time round, but it doesn't change the fact that Liam Lawson is very, very close to him indeed. Lawson, the quickest of these three drivers again when he has the opportunity to be. And pressuring Yuki Tsunoda, but he's going to have to be a little bit inventive, I think, if he's going to find a way ahead of his teammate and fellow Red Bull Junior team member. And Tsunoda, once again, drifting out that little bit further wide at the exit of Gar. Meanwhile, keeping an eye on the progress of Billy Munger, he's made up another place. Billy Munger, unseen by us, up into 7th now, ahead of Tepe Notori.
And Lucas Dunner, who started quite high up the order, is now down to 12th place. He's behind Aldo Festante, who's one of those setting personal best sectors in the last lap. And we're looking back at the battle between Lundqvist, Notori and Samaya behind him. And Billy Munger's already gapped them quite significantly in just a sector. He's almost a second and a half up.
And through the first sector on this lap, Munger was nearly 0.6 of a second quicker than our race leader, so there's still plenty of life in his wet weather tyres. And he's now climbing all over the tail of Christian Hahn, who is in 6th position. Now, I'm very interested to see what Billy Munger may be able to do in terms of making an overtaking move, and indeed where he's getting all these passes done, because it's awfully difficult to pass around Pau, even if you're on a wet track with wet tyres and everybody else is on slicks. And Munger clearly vastly, vastly quicker than Christian Hahn. They come around the right-hander at Buisson. Oh, and nearly running into the back of his rival there. They make their way down. They dodge left and right, they come into the chicane now, and now they're into one of the longer acceleration zones. So this may well be where Munger is able to draw ahead of the rival ahead of him. Once they come out onto the straighter section of the track, this is potentially a move then for 6th position as they come past the pits. Munger takes a look to the inside at turn 1. Hahn leaves him just about enough room. They break for the right-hander at Gar, and Munger, sure enough, is down the inside and into 6th position. That gamble at the end of the formation lap to switch to wet weather tyres is certainly paying off for him very nicely indeed.
And Lucas Dunner, who isn't in the picture now, has dropped further down the order. He's now in the pits, I believe, in 14th place. And we've also got Lundqvist pitting as well. So I imagine people are seeing Billy Munger's pace on track right now, and they're switching to wet tyres.
Well, certainly, if the safety car comes out again, that could work out very well for them indeed. And we've still got 19 laps to go, and we've still got Liam Lawson crawling all over the tail of Yuki Tsunoda.
But Lawson had a huge slide through turn 6 there. Rear end came out completely.
You might think that there are only so many times you can get away with that, but he seems pretty comfortable with the car underneath him as it is. And absolutely climbing all over the curb as they come out of the hairpin and into the chicane, back round to begin another lap.
And the amount of shine on these slick tyres, you can't see it in this picture, but as they approach, the shininess of those tyres shows how wet they are, and you can almost see rooster tails now as well. The cars are kicking up.
Yeah, I do wonder if the rain may have returned a little bit, at least at perhaps some parts of the circuit, and we are actually getting some reports of drizzle down towards the pit lane area. So once again, it looks like the rain gods may be favouring Billy Munger on this one. He has moved up into 6th position, as we saw the last time around, and now trying to close on Cameron Dass for 5th position. He is 14 seconds behind this battle for the lead.
And they're side by side going up through to turn 3, so they may see them in our pit soon.
Oh, and there he is. Munger has passed Dass, and he's up into 5th position. He is ripping his way through the field. Let's get a replay. This is them as they came into Gar. Dass ran a little bit wide, not able to do anything about Billy Munger getting down the inside of him.
You see the amount of opposite lock that Dass has to apply there to get through the corner. And interestingly, looking at the sector times, although Billy Munger is fast, he's only matching what Motor Park is setting.
And Yuki Tsunoda, we think, has just come into the pits for wet weather tyres.
Yeah, we also have another car, I believe, who's just come
Looks like Julian Hanses may have come in as well. So have our two race leaders just come into the pits and handed the lead over to Liam Lawson. Unless we're seeing something unusual on our timing screens, we're looking at Christian Hahn, who's running in 7th position. He's now got Cameron Dass in front of him, and Billy Munger goes fastest of all through the middle sector of the lap. No, it doesn't look like our race leaders did pit, but Munger absolutely flying through the middle sector, 1.4 seconds faster than anybody in the middle sector of the lap alone. Munger is going to catch our race leaders very, very quickly if he keeps this up. He was 2 seconds faster than them on the last lap, and now Liam Lawson is going for the move on Yuki Tsunoda. It's so close at Oscar. They've hit once already this year. Are they going to hit again? Not this time. Tsunoda just holds on to that second place, but there was millimeters in it. And Billy Munger, meanwhile, he's catching Marino Sato ahead of him at nearly 3 seconds per lap. So that battle is going to be joined almost as soon as I've finished saying this sentence. It's getting that close. So we've got our race leaders clinging on their slick tyres, and Billy Munger now up into 5th position, absolutely flying on his wets.
Yeah, and we saw the move between the two Red Bull juniors, and they're still right behind each other going down through the last sector of the lap. But there's a huge amount of the rear end instability on Lawson's car, and you're wondering how long this would be until they're going to hit each other. And they've got, we had to make avoiding action there on the exit of that right-hander, and they're coming down through to
and he's diving for it at the chicane. Lawson goes down the inside and he's made it stick. That was a superbly optimistic and opportunistic move by Liam Lawson. But I was just about to say, he absolutely had to get something done. It's clear that he's capable of going a lot quicker than these drivers, and they've got a car reeling them in on wet weather tyres. So Lawson, finally, at a very unlikely spot on the track, has dived down the inside, taken 2nd position off Yuki Tsunoda. He's now going to go off in search of Julian Hanses, but meanwhile Billy Munger is lighting up our timing screens again as Han heads for the pits.
Yeah, Billy Munger's already way past Marino Sato by about 2 seconds just in one sector alone, and I wouldn't be surprised if other drivers follow Hahn into the pits right now, because the circuit is looking wetter by the lap. And then we're seeing a shot of Munger going through turn 3 now. He is quite a distance behind our top 3 cars, but he is significantly faster. He set another purple sector in the first sector, 26.9 seconds. That's 2 seconds faster than the motorbike drivers ahead of him.
Yeah, that gap to the leaders is coming down all the time. It's now less than 10 seconds, and it's not going to last very long at all, because he's just taken 1.3 seconds out of them in the first sector of this lap. So there is Billy Munger. That gamble for wet weather tyres at the end of the formation lap is now looking utterly inspired. Yuki Tsunoda absolutely grappling with his car as he comes around the left-hander that leads them towards Buisson. Billy Munger looking an awful lot more assured in his Carling machine. He dodges his way left and right. He's coming around to begin another lap.
And we have 2 more cars in the pits. We've got Tepe Nattori from Carlin and Callum Williams are switching. And Lucas Dunner, who we believe had switched earlier, has just set the fastest lap at 1 minute 22.495.
And you can see the effect that the rain is happening now, because every time they come round, the spray is building, the track is getting wetter, and Billy Munger must be absolutely relishing these conditions as he continues to home in on the drivers ahead of him. He took 3.4 seconds out of race leader Julian Hanses on that lap. He's now 6.3 seconds behind the race leader.
If it's this wet right now, this is a hugely impressive performance by the 3 motorpark drivers at front, who have stayed on slick tyres throughout, and they're setting times comparable a few laps ago with Munger. And Munger's already got Yuki Tsunoda in his sights going up to the climb to turn 5.
Yeah, he locked the inside front right-hand tyre as he came into Lycée that time around. It's a little bit wide of the apex, but is clearly much, much more secure with the handling of his car. And I think it's going to take him no time at all to find a way past Yuki Tsunoda. He just needs to, it's difficult always to balance eagerness with restraint in these conditions, because he knows he's capable of going so much quicker than the drivers. It would be incredibly easy for him to throw this one away, but he is looking at an opportunity here to score a remarkable win in one of motorsport's most historic races.
Yeah, you can see how much grip he has. He had so much more speed for the turn 6 right-hander, which goes past Park Beaumont, and the amount of curbs he's using compared to the other drivers, he's able to go on the wetter patches, and we can't really see the 2 cars through the the mist of rain now, but he's right on the rear of Tsunoda crossing the line. And up front there's less than a second in it. Munga's looking at turn 2.
Oh, and
Very
Tsunoda
risky.
thought about turning in, and he didn't quite have the grip to do it, I don't think. But as they accelerate out the corner, surely Munga is going to have the grip to get the pass done. I'm not sure the marshal was quite right in waving the blue flag there in the background. Tsunoda isn't a back marker, although the speed difference might make you think that he is. He is trying his very, very best to hold on to this position, though, as they go around Oscar. Is that going to give Munga a look as they come into Lycée? No, it's not. So Tsunoda's been able to repel Munga's attack for a couple of laps, but I think it's going to be here in these quick corners where we really see how much Tsunoda is struggling on the wet tyres compared to Munga.
Yeah, we're
on the slick tyres.
Look through the next 2 corners and see how much more speed Munga carries behind Tsunoda. And it comes into shot now, taking a wider line, a lot more momentum. It's an incredible difference between the 2 tyre compounds right now. But Munga yesterday told me that he burnt through his wet tyres far too quickly because he wanted to push straight away because he didn't get to warm them up as he pitted. And he's had the same thing today. Oh, when he's looking at a move going down to the right-hander, very close, he's thinking better of it.
Well, now this is interesting because he has been queued up behind Tsunoda for nearly a full lap now, and he nearly runs into the back of him and almost falls his way over the motor park driver as he goes down the inside of the chicane. Munga moves up into 3rd position. I wouldn't accuse him of doing that one more by luck than judgment, but mighty, it was close.
That was a great pass. And several of the other drivers who followed him in switching tyres, including his teammate Nicola Shargaard, he was way down in the order and he's now in 6th place. He did set fastest lap 2 laps ago, but it's just been beaten by Lucas Dunner of Teo Martin Motorsport. And we've got Julian Hanses, who looks like he's coming under pressure from Liam Lawson again. The gap was just over a second 2 laps ago. It's now down to under half a second.
Well, I think Liam Lawson's chances of winning this race rest on him clearing Julian Hanses as quickly as he can and drawing clear if he's able to. I feel like he's lost quite a lot of time behind Hanses already. He might have the chance to get it done, but it's not going to be easy while he has Billy Munga bearing down on them. We've got a yellow flag at turn 3. The race leaders have just gone through there. So who is it that is off down at Oscar? We will find out in a moment. I'm wondering if... No, Jack Doohan went out earlier on in Rui Andrade rather went off earlier on in proceedings, so it isn't him. Green flag now at turn 3. It's green around the rest of the track as well. So if Liam Lawson can spy anywhere, he might be able to pass Julian Hanses for the race lead. He can give it a go. They're approaching the chicane where he made that stunning pass on Tsunoda, and he is having a try. He launches down the inside. The teammates collide. The 2 motor park drivers off, and that was Billy Munga going past them into the lead of the Pau Grand Prix. And I'm sorry to say that Liam Lawson has collided with one of his teammates again. He went down the inside, there wasn't the room, hit the curb and bundled Julian Hansen straight into the tyre barrier. And just wait to see the Carling car, there it is, of Billy Munga going through into the lead.
Both drivers do look all right there, but that was quite a heavy side-on impact for Hanses into the barrier. And our timing screens actually incorrectly told us as someone had crashed at turn 3. That was Billy Munga, car number 31, they were reporting there. So slightly unusual graphic there.
So, Billy Munga, our race leader, he came into the pits at the end of the formation lap to put wet weather tyres on, and what an inspired decision that is. However, he's got another challenge coming his way because the safety car has been deployed to clear up those 2 motor park drivers who are crashed over at the chicane at the exit of Buisson. And there is Liam Lawson climbing out of the car. And once again, Elliot, he has come to a Euroformula race weekend. He's won one race and then he's collided with a teammate in the other. And no surprises, he is scarping off that escape road before Julian Hanses has a word with him about his driving conduct.
Yes, he wouldn't want to get into an argument there. He did say earlier in the weekend that he was talking about how old this circuit is and the challenge he faced, and he said corners like this turn 10-11 complex, where we're seeing a replay of him hitting his teammate, were so dangerous because the eye line of what you were seeing in front wasn't the track. It was hedges or the fans or the barriers and walls. It was very hard to judge when you needed to turn in because it was a blind crested corner. And we've just seen that's what happens when you misjudge it.
Indeed, and that's also what happens, I think, when you try to force an opportunity, because it was clear that out of those motor park drivers, he was the quickest, but trying to find a way to cement that advantage and convert an overtaking move when he was under increasing pressure from Billy Munga bearing down on them was so difficult indeed. Yuki Tsunoda, it looks like, may have been into the pits to put on wet weather tyres. He's heading out of the pit lane now, and I believe he's been able to do it, holding on to second position. Unsurprisingly, the incident between Julian Hanses and Liam Lawson Lawson is under investigation. I would imagine that the Motor Park team bosses will be investigating it as well. There is Yuki Tsunoda in the pits as we speak, so he hasn't left the pit lane just yet. I think he was just entering the pit lane, actually. We have an unusual curved pits here at Po, so he hadn't actually, and as you can see, his pit box is the last one there, so he hadn't actually quite made it to the exit, so he may have had to sacrifice a few places with that stop.
And we've got a shot of Lawson here looking very frustrated with what's just happened. He's not going to be pleased with himself, and he could lose championship lead here. Guilherme Samara, Teo Martin Motorsport is another who pitted, but Nikolai Schaergaard, unless I'm mistaken, should be in second place now because he was just behind Tsunoda as he went into the pits. And he joined Munger in pitting for wet tyres, and we're seeing a shot of
Samaya, who's just come out of the pits as well.
The track still is very wet. It's immediately kicking up rooster tails and dispensing water. So
I would think with this safety car now, everybody will have taken the opportunity to put wet weather tyres on. And so we began this race with a Motor Park 1, 2, 3, 4, and we are now going to have, I believe, a Carlin 1-2 up at the sharp end with Billy Munger in front of Nikolai Kiergaard, and Cameron Dass will move up into third place. I'm just wondering how far down the order Yuki Tsunoda has dropped. The safety car is coming in.
Although Munger will be happy to be leading this race, he did have quite a significant advantage over the other wet tyre runners prior to the crash, and because of the safety car, he's got no advantage at all now.
I can't help but think he would be feeling that he could have taken the lead of this race without those two drivers.
To each other.
Indeed.
I think they're friendly chatter, we'll call that.
Yeah, Hansens is quite a bit taller than Liam Lawson. He'd be well advised to keep it polite. The race is underway once again, and Billy Munger holds the lead ahead of Nikolai Kiergaard. Green flags wave, and we've got, trying to make a move in the background, Linus Lundqvist taking a look up the inside of Aldo Festante, and there is Yuki Tsunoda trying to recover some lost ground. He came out of the pits in 7th position then, and Munger has established a very slight lead over Kiergaard, but Das is not immediately quick at this restart, and down the inside goes Lundqvist up into 4th place.
Yeah, and Yuki Tsunoda on his new wet tyres is looking very grippy.
Oh, and so is Lundqvist, though, immediately down the inside of Cameron Dass. It's awfully tight, though, and he's run out of room at the exit. It is a classic Lice fender bender. We've got 3 cars queued up. Linus Lundqvist ahead of Aldo Festante and Lucas Dunner, I think that was there, all queued up at the exit of the corner, and that is the perennial problem with that corner, Elliot. If you try to make a pass and you go in too tight on the inside, there literally isn't the steering lock to make it through. Here comes Lundqvist, and as we'll see, he just ran out of room.
Yeah, and although we're seeing the replay now, I believe Yuki Tsunoda did pass Guilherme Samaya later around the lap, possibly at turn 7.
So I wonder if we're going to need another safety car to clear that one up. Meanwhile, the race leaders are coming around to complete the lap, and we have got 12 laps remaining. Billy Munger ahead of Nikolai Kiergaard up at the sharp end. There is a yellow flag at turn 4, which is Lice. No great surprises there.
We'll see how quickly the marshals have how quickly the marshals have removed the cars, because they haven't called a safety car, only a yellow flag so far.
We'll find out in a few moments' time, because the leaders are accelerating out of the second corner. They've just got to round the left-hander at Oscar before they reach Lice. Another lap has been added to make up for the time spent behind the safety car periods. I got to say, Elliot, at first glance, based on the pace of the cars since the safety car came in, Kiergaard, I think, might have something to show Munger here.
Yes, but both of the Carlin cars pulled out over 6 seconds to Cameron Dass within 1 lap, so that's a hugely impressive performance. Green flag's already shown at turn 4.
That's remarkable work once again by the marshals. We've been praising them to the hilt, particularly in the qualifying session earlier on, if you joined us. They really have done absolutely fantastic work. I mean, safety cars are to be expected at a race like this, but to keep them to a minimum the way they have done really is exceptional stuff. And it means we get to enjoy more green flag racing, and that is very much a good thing. We have had another car hit the wall. Actually, sorry, that is a belated report of Linus Lundqvist hitting the barrier down at turn 4. Meanwhile,
Yuki Tsunoda has already passed Cameron Dass at 3rd place now, so he's on the newest tyres of anyone here, and he is rapidly closing in on the top 2. So we may have a three-way fight for victory come the end of this race.
Yeah, he's going to have to catch them quickly, though, because as you said, the Carlin drivers really scorched away. There is Yuki Tsunoda just coming into your picture in the background, restored in his 3rd position. So ducking in for wet weather tyres definitely paid off for him during the safety car period, and he is quicker than anyone. Well, actually, no, that's not quite true. He wasn't quicker in the last sector just then.
He got very loose there coming through the exit of turn 2.
Yeah, he's been loose there all race, hasn't he?
Yeah, very, very interesting line he takes through that corner.
He's very quick through the middle section of the lap, though. That's where he's making up most of his time. At the moment, it's not looking like enough to quite get the job done, but let's see. This is going to be, I think, his first proper flying lap without traffic in front of him.
And Billy Munger's stretching his advantage, I believe, at the front now. He was just a tenth of a second faster than his teammate Nicolas Jargard going through sector 1. And they're approaching turn 6 now. And we're seeing 4 cars in our picture now. That's one of Teo Martin cars overtaking Cameron Dass as well. That's Lucas Dunner. So it's unusual for Dass because I believe he changed the tyres quite early in this race.
Yeah, I don't know if he's just lost the heat in them during the safety car period. Is he still on slicks? They certainly look very...
Maybe the tread's just gone slightly from the wet tyres because they've been ran for so long.
Could well be. Maybe he's just burned through them very, very quickly indeed. Yuki Tsunoda goes fastest of all in the middle sector of the lap. In fact, that's the fastest sector time we've seen all race through the longest sector of the lap, which leads around the very, very quick corners, including the left-hander at Casino, the right at Parc Beaumont, and into Foch. So if he's able to do that,
second out there.
He has a full second actually over the lap. Out of Billy Munger. So the gap between Tsunoda in third place and race leader Billy Munger is down to 5.7 seconds. So with 9 laps to go, this one is far from over.
Yeah, and Cameron Dass is already under pressure again now. He's got Christian Hahn and Marina Sato behind him, who are looking to make a move. We're looking at the top 2 in our picture again. Still separated by a few tenths, and they're running at a reasonable pace compared to the rest of the pack. Oh, and there's
Cameron Dass continuing to struggle.
Yeah.
I think he's lost another place there to Christian Hahn.
He's going to lose another now.
So really
Williams. Because he was a lot further down the order. That's his Fortec Motorsports teammate.
I'm convinced that Dass has still got slick tyres. I don't think he came in for wets.
Yeah, and we've got Tepe Notori and Marino Sato in the back of that picture as well. And we're seeing a replay of Hahn's move. And Dass is indeed on slicks, we've just got confirmation of.
Yep, and we are in fact running to the time limit, I'm reminded. So you can see the graphic at the top of your screen has changed. So we haven't got 9 laps to go, we've got 3 minutes to go. So Tsunoda is really going to have to lean on it if he's going to catch the cars in front of him. He's doing exactly that. He was a second quicker through the middle section of the lap, but it's going to be very, very tight indeed for him to make it. Billy Munger has re-established a little bit of his advantage in the last lap around. He's just eked that lead out to a second over Billy Munger. The quickest driver on track, however, though, is not Tsunoda, but 4th place Lucas Dunner, who's just gone quickest of all in all 3 sectors, sets a new fastest lap of the race with a 1:20.993. To give you an indication, that's around about 10 seconds off a flat-out dry weather lap time for these cars. That's how much they're having to back off for the conditions. So Tsunoda is flying in 3rd, Dunner is flying in 4th, but are they going to have enough time to catch our race leaders who you're looking at?
Yeah, and I believe Dass has just been passed by Marino Sato as well. And yeah, and we're just seeing that, and Tepe Notori is looking at the outside of turn 3 as well. He wants to make a move on the American, and he's completed it. Very loose Dass on his slick tyres. You wonder how much of a risk he is staying on these tyres and not crashing.
It is a big risk indeed. For the time being, at least, he looks likely to score at least 1 point because Callum Williams in 11th place is a lap down. So perhaps it was a gamble they thought they'd take on. Maybe they thought the track was going to dry up more quickly, or the wet weather tyres would go off more quickly than they have done, particularly for those drivers like Billy Munger, who we're looking at, who's been on them all race. But the Michelin tyres proving more than up to the challenge at Po at the moment.
And Yuki Tsunoda is faster than Billy Munger by over a second in the first and second sectors. And we're just seeing across the line, he's only 3.2 seconds behind now. He's only got 1.5 minutes, though, to close in on top 2.
And this is a tricky calculation for Tsunoda because he is flying, he is quick, he could potentially take these guys, but he's got to think. Yesterday, he didn't score, and his teammate did. And now he's in the position to undo a lot of the damage that happened to his championship chances yesterday.
Yeah, and he won't want to be repeating Lawson's mistake from earlier, crashing into his teammate. And looking at Dass is losing more time now. Look like Munger and Jargard are running at basically the same pace every single lap, so they may be looking after their tyres. We've only got less than a minute now. Will it be another lap added onto this, or as they cross the line?
We will find out, I think, as they cross the line. Billy Munger then leading from Nikolai Kiergaard and Yuki Tsunoda. We started this race with the leading 3 drivers all as close as you like, running nose to tail. And it looks like we're going to end the race with the drivers just as close again. And I think Nikolai Kiergaard, as he sees Yuki Tsunoda bearing down on him, is trying to pick the pace up a little bit and move a little bit closer to Billy Munger. So the 2 drivers leading have had those wet weather tyres on for the entire race. Yuki Tsunoda behind them has got a fresher set of wet weather tyres, and is he going to be able to use them to do anything as they come past the pits with 15 seconds left to run?
And there's 1.3 seconds between the top 2 now, so that's the biggest gap Munger's had for a long time. It is the final lap, and there's another 1 second to Yuki Tsunoda behind, so Tsunoda could get involved in this. The top 3 are running up the hill to turn 3 now. Munger's looking comfortable up front, but Kiergaard's under a lot of pressure from behind.
Well, Munger accelerates towards the Lycée for the final time in the Pau Grand Prix. He has only got 10 corners separating him from a victory that would not only be a win in one of the most famous and one of the greatest names in motor racing, but also a remarkable win by any stretch of the imagination, given the circumstances of this extraordinary race. But it's certainly not over as far as second place is concerned, because Nikolai Kiergaard has got Yuki Tsunoda looming behind him. The track conditions remain treacherous. The wet weather tyres are wearing down. The drivers have got to keep it tidy through these final few corners.
There's a little slide there from Billy Munger, and Yuki Tsunoda's right on the tail of Nikolai Kiergaard now. Talking of Munger, this will be his first ever win in single-seaters in the Pau Grand Prix itself, which is a huge achievement.
It is looking very much like being that as he accelerates out through the chicane where the 2 Motorpark drivers crashed. It has been a stunning performance from Billy Munger. He sees the checkered flag. He wins the 78th running of the Pau Grand Prix. What an outstanding drive by Billy Munger, the young man who was so cruelly injured in that terrible crash at Donington Park a couple of years ago, racing a Formula 3 car specially adapted with hand controls to suit him. And that is one of the most outstanding races I have seen for a long, long time. An incredibly worthy winner after an astonishing gamble at the start of the race. Hats off to Billy Munger for an absolutely stunning drive. Nikolai Kiergaard behind him also made the switch to wet weather tyres at the start of the race. The marshals salute Billy Munger as he rounds Oscar. And Yuki Tsunoda, a very good damage limitation exercise after everything that went wrong for him yesterday. But make no mistake, Elliot, this is absolutely Billy Munger's day of days. A really important win for him in every possible sense. And what a fantastic sight to see. And the joy on the Carlin pit wall is obvious.
Yes, and another few words on Munger. He has had a few problems with brake pressure recently because of the way his car's adapted. And he changed brake supplies this weekend. The first time he got to test it in the dry was yesterday. So this is only the second day he's been using those brakes, and he's won a race with them. Well, incredible.
Clearly enjoying and certainly not having a problem with the feel of them in these tricky conditions as well. A superb performance by the youngster from Surrey. Let's just take a little bit of a look at who finished elsewhere in the Pau Grand Prix. Lucas Dunner was 4th after absolutely charging his way forward on those wet weather tyres at the end of the race. Christian Hahn takes 5th place. Marino Sato never really had the pace of his Motorpark teammates from the off and fell to 6th. Tepe Notori was 7th ahead of Cameron Dass. Dass, that extraordinary gamble, staying on wet slick tyres at the end of the race, pays off to an extent with 4 points for 8th place. Guillaume Samaya was 9th ahead of Aldo Festante, and then we had the retirements release. Callum Williams a lap down, Linus Lundqvist went into the barrier. Julian Hansus, we saw, was taken out by Liam Lawson as Lawson tried to take the lead off him. Jack Doohan went out early on in proceedings, and so did Rui Andrade. Rounds of applause for Nikolai Kiergaard and Billy Munger, who've delivered a 1-2 finish for Carlin. That, if nothing else, is really going to sting for Motorpark.
Yeah, they gambled on staying on the dry tyres throughout. A gamble that was achieved by Cameron Dass with 8th place, and he was running on dry tyres throughout. Hugely impressive that he kept it out the wall there. And the fact that the fans are all celebrating this victory as well in the rain, so it's a big day for everyone here.
Absolutely. I mean, and fair play to the fans. They've had to put up with an awful lot of rain over the past 72 hours at Pau. It's been on and off throughout the weekend. It hasn't really put a dampener on any of the action as far as the track's concerned. We had a corking race for the Euroformula Open cars yesterday. And I must admit, I came in here wondering this morning whether we might have a slightly more processional second race. Not a bit of it. That was an absolute humdinger. And another point to pick up from this race is that the top three finishers, all rookies to the championship. So there's going to be no difference between the ordinary podium and the rookie podium at the end of this one. Billy Munger, Nikolai Kiergaard and Yuki Tsunoda, all newcomers to the championship. We have got a lot to pick out from the aftermath of this race at Po. What a thrilling few minutes it has been. We're going to grab Billy Munger for a few words as soon as possible. And there he is, embracing his mother down in the paddock. We're going to get to hear from our race winner in just a few moments' time with Alfredo down in the pits. Obviously, a lot of people wanting to celebrate and congratulate with our race winner, Billy Munger, at the moment. So we'll bring you his first thoughts on this win as soon as we can do. Let's take a look back at the best from this race then. It began on a very slightly damp track with 4 Motorpark cars at the sharp end and 4 other cars in the pits, including Billy Munger, switching from slicks to wet weather tyres. And Rui Andrade immediately showed why, because the conditions were treacherous to say the least. And Jack Doohan was also out early on. Billy Munger made rapid progress, having switched to his wet weather tyres. Here he was overtaking Cameron Das, and while Munger spent the entire race on wets, Das audaciously gambled on staying on slicks. Liam Lawson showed that it was possible to overtake down the chicane. He did one of his teammates there, getting ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda then dropping back into the clutches of Munger, who continued to make his way forward. And sure enough, Munger was also able to dodge down at the inside at the chicane. But when Lawson tried the same move on Hanses, it went disastrously wrong. Hanses completely covered over the inside line. Lawson launched over the curb, took his teammate out, and both were out of the race. That handed the lead to Billy Munger. Once the race restarted, Linus Lundqvist did get down the inside of Das at the Lycée hairpin, but it caused a minor carambolage. 3 cars dropping out there. Munger still had to stave off pressure after the safety car from his teammate Nikolai Kiergaard and the fast-closing Yuki Tsunoda, who made a pit stop to change to wet weather tyres. But it wasn't enough to stop Billy Munger from getting his hands on a victory in the Euroformula Open and the 78th Po Grand Prix. So there is our provisional classification for the 78th Po Grand Prix in round 4 of the 2019 Euroformula Open. Billy Munger winning and leading a 1-2 for Carlin ahead of his teammate Nikolai Kiergaard. Yuki Tsunoda recovering a very useful 15 points in the championship after the setback his title bid suffered yesterday. He takes third and is the top Motorpark finisher in a race which began with 4 Motorpark cars in the top 4 places on the grid. Lucas Dunner had plenty of pace but could only deliver 4th place as he had yesterday. Christian Hahn came in 5th position. Marino Sato just not on the pace of his Motorpark teammates, down in 6th place. Tepe Naturi, the 4th of our rookies home, an all-rookie podium today in fact. 7th position for the Carlin driver, and Cameron Das very bravely trying to get to the end of the race on slick tyres. He came in 8th. Rounding off the point scorers were Guillaume Samaya in 9th and Aldo Fastanti in 10th. Callum Williams was a lap down in 11th position, and then we have the drivers who hit the barriers, or in some case hit each other's. We're looking at you, Liam Lawson, and Julian Hanses. And Rui Andrade, unfortunately, the first retirement in what proved to be an unbelievably action-packed race. We are about to get the podium proceedings underway at Po. And Elliot, where on earth do you begin in picking out the key talking point from that race? I suppose all weekend long, the big factor has been the rain, and it's been the question of who's mastered the response to it best.
Yeah, it's been a very strategic weekend, which is unusual for junior single-seater racing. I think the fact that Motorpark stuck to those slick tyres, even when drivers behind her, Joes and Wets, were going so much faster, is probably the biggest talking point of this race, because this is a race they lost.
Yeah, the fascinating question for me is what might have happened if Liam Lawson had qualified up in pole position, because he was clearly on the slick tyres considerably quicker than the 2 cars ahead of him. And even with that pace advantage, of course, overtaking is so difficult, as we saw. But I do wonder what he might have been doing had he started the race from pole position. But it didn't turn out that way. And it does also underscore that, just being faster doesn't give you an immediate right to get ahead of the car in front of you. And, Hanses was completely covering off the inside line at the chicane and trying to force the issue. who just brought things to end in tears.
Yeah, it kind of teaches drivers don't go for a move on a street circuit in a very tight chicane. I believe this is Carlin's 4th PoGP victory. They had Anthony Davidson in 2000, Antonio Giovinazzi, who currently races for Alfa Romeo in Formula 1 in 2015, Alessio Lorandi in 2016, and now Billy Munger, 2019 Po Grand Prix winner.
I'm also wondering if this is Billy Munger's first street race.
Yes, yesterday.
Yesterday, of course, first race weekend on a street race. So that's quite a tally that he's set for himself there.
This is actually Euroformula Open's first ever visit to the Po Grand Prix, and we're hoping to return next year as part of the championship.
Well, down in the pits, our race winner, Billy Munger, is ready to talk to Alfredo. Let's hear the story of that astonishing victory in the Po Grand Prix.
Billy Munger, well done. What a fantastic race.
I can't believe it. I mean, after qualifying 11th, and we had so much more potential than that, I thought that was going to be our race. I thought we were going to be stuck in the mid-pack, but it was. We had the green flag lap, and I just knew it was too wet. And where I was starting, I just made the gamble for wet, on the green flag, safety before the start of the race. And then from that point on, just tried to pick them off one by one. But I got to thank the team. I got to thank Carlin. I mean, I didn't ever believe that 2 years ago, that this would be the case. That I'd be winning races, and I'm just over the moon.
Do you realize that your name is in the Roll of Honor of the Po Grand Prix together with Ascari, Nuvolari, Jim Clark, Jackie Stewart, Lewis Hamilton?
Yeah, I can't believe it. I couldn't. I was dead last after the first lap when I was pitted. I think there was 2 guys behind me that pitted as well. Me and my engineer, we were fighting with each other over the radio on the green flag lap. I was telling him it's wet, and he was telling me no, we should stay slicks. And eventually I just came in and it was the right call. So yeah, I don't know what to say.
Don't say anything. Enjoy the moment, and it's time for a big celebration.
Fantastic result there for Billy Munger, and I do wish we could have heard that team radio conversation between him and his race engineer. I wonder how long it's going to take him to say "I told you so" on that one, because that was undoubtedly the call that won him the race. We're going to have our top 3 drivers out on the podium in a moment. And we have to say, as Munger mentioned just then, Elliot, he wasn't the only driver who came in for wet weather tyres at the end of the formation lap. There were a couple of others as well, but having made that gamble, you have to make the progress through the field, and we picked up quite early on that he was the only one of those drivers really starting to pick off the cars in front of him.
Yeah, he did, and this is a really nice symmetry to the first race of the weekend, where Munger and his team had the same argument, pulled off the same strategy, but it didn't produce this result. And it just shows kind of the quirky nature of street circuit racing.
It absolutely does, yeah. And particularly in a race where only 11 drivers saw the checkered flag, knowing that there's always the possibility that might happen, does make it a little bit easier to justify a gamble at the start of the race. So I think the Po Grand Prix crowd will have enjoyed that one very much indeed. They've had a fantastic weekend of racing. You have to say, the schedule at the Po Grand Prix is absolutely packed. We've had cars of all different shapes and sizes hitting the track over the course of the last couple of days, and we've still got some more action to come. But the main event, the Po Grand Prix itself, as you say, Elliot, being run for the first time with Euro Formula cars, certainly hasn't failed to deliver. Yuki Tsunoda, I think he's got to be reasonably pleased with his day's work.
Yes, he was one of those who spent most of the race on the dry tyre, and after yesterday, where he did set fastest lap, broke the tie, this is a great haul of points for him.
Yeah, and good for Nikolai Kiergaard as well, who of course ended yesterday's race in the barriers.
Yes, having said that though, Liam Lawson, I believe, is still on top of the standings by 6 points over teammate Marino Sato, who finished this race in 6th. And you can hear a large round of applause for our winner, Billy Munger.
What an absolutely fantastic sight that is to see, and I think one of the most inspiring sights we've seen in motor racing. Billy Munger, of course, who lost the lower parts of his legs in that crash a couple of years ago, standing on the top step of the podium, having seen off his rivals in very challenging conditions at a properly difficult street circuit, joined on the top step of the podium by the representative from Carlin at the end of today's Po Grand Prix. We're going to have the national anthem for the race winner in a moment. anthem rings out for Billy Munger on the top step of the podium. What a tremendous turn of events we have seen in the past half an hour. We have got a lot more action coming up in the Euro Formula Open over the remaining races of the championship, but they are really going to have to be something special indeed to rival the spectacle that we've seen on the streets of Po over the last couple of days. Two absolutely riveting races. Liam Lawson won a cracking encounter yesterday, but really that one paled in comparison to the thrilling bout that we've just had in the rain. Won by Billy Munger. He holds his trophy aloft, and you don't need me to tell you what that means to him. It is written all over his face. Number one for Billy Munger, and number one for Carlin as well, and number one and number two for Carlin for that matter, bringing their two drivers home in the first two places. And that is certainly going to give him all the confidence he could want to go from here on into the rest of the championship and try to take the fight to the Motorpark drivers who were so quick throughout this race weekend, but in the final reckoning were only able to deliver half of the available wins on the streets of Po. So a big round of applause from the crowd for Billy Munger. And Elliot, from what we've seen so far, the first two race weekends in Po, how do you see the rest of the season unfolding from this point on, and particularly this absorbing title battle that we're going to have now between Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda and the rest?
I think this season is going to be hugely unpredictable because we've had new teams coming in, such as Motorpark. We've had new engines with Spies, HWA and the existing Pietrafita unit. And we've got stories like Billy Munger coming to victory from a length on the grid. And if drivers can start that far down and win races, then why can't it happen at any other circuits?
Yeah, effectively a win from the pits, really. You have to credit him for, don't you, given where he actually started the race from. So we're now dishing out the silverware for the top three rookies, who, as we mentioned, are the same as the top three drivers in the race, which is why we've kept the same three drivers out on the podium. Shake of the hands for Billy Munger. He gets an extra one for the mantelpiece. I think of all the various trophies he's accumulated over the years, that is surely the one that's going to mean the most to him so far. Not least because, as we've said so many times before, the Po Grand Prix has been won by so many prestigious names in the past, one of the longest running races in motorsport. And I'm reminded that Lewis Hamilton has done so much recently, or certainly last year, to help raise Billy's profile following his accident and help him move on in his path in motor racing after losing part of his legs. Hamilton, of course, a Po Grand Prix winner as well, and Billy Munger now able to join him in that. We release the champagne and we congratulate the drivers at the end of the Po Grand Prix, above all and especially Billy Munger, on a supremely hard-fought win, and he will savour that one for a long time to come, I'm sure. From me, Keith Collentine, and from Elliot Wood, thank you very much for joining us for the 78th Po Grand Prix. We'll see you for more Euro Formula action again very soon. Bye for now.